In my past life, to survive, I abandoned all dignity to curry favor with the regent prince. Unexpectedly, upon rebirth, I encountered him during the most desperate period of his life. To evade assassins, Xia Yunhan had fallen to begging, forced to compete with stray dogs for scraps. The maid tugged at my sleeve, timidly warning, "Miss, don't go near him. His eyes are bloodshot, it's rather frightening." I stepped before him and offered the cake in my hand. Starved. He took a bite yet continued to stare at me with that unsettling gaze. I slapped him across the face. "Did you say thank you?" The maid watched me strike the beggar, her face frozen in shock. "Miss, have you lost your mind?" Of course I hadn't lost my mind. But if I didn't avenge this wrong, would my rebirth have been for nothing? The stinging sensation lingered in my palm after the slap. Behind me, the maid Xiao Hong gasped in fright. "Miss, have you gone mad?" 5 distinct finger marks appeared on Xia Yunhan's filthy face. In my past life, he would have killed me long ago. But now, the lofty regent prince was merely a desperate fugitive. Patrol soldiers approached, their weapons and armor clinking sharply. Xia Yunhan lowered his gaze slightly, suppressing the icy murderous intent in his dark eyes. He murmured softly, "Thank you." Hearing this, I smiled with satisfaction. This young lady is quite pleased. I brushed dust from my hands, pulled a few pieces of silver from my purse, tossed them before him, and smiled, "All for you. Should you wish to repay this favor someday, remember I am Song Lianyue, the legitimate daughter of the Song family." After distributing the porridge, seated in the carriage returning to the mansion, Xiao Hong couldn't help but ask me, "Miss, why did you say you were the eldest daughter just now?" I smiled. I came out to distribute the porridge in my elder sister's place. Any good reputation should naturally fall upon her. Of course, if any retribution comes later, it should naturally fall upon her as well. Xiao Hong sighed with concern. I wonder if the eldest daughter's cold has cleared up yet. Holding the hand warmer, I let a cold smile curve my lips. Of course she's better. In my previous life, at this very time, I'd hurriedly finished distributing soup for Song Lianyue. Worried about her cold, I'd stopped at the Drunken Moon Pavilion on the way back to buy a bowl of her favorite brown sugar rice wine. I'd kept it warm by the brazier in the carriage all the way home. Carrying the steaming rice wine to her courtyard, I found no maid guarding her door. I pushed it open and entered. Through layers of crimson curtains, I glimpsed a man with his upper body bare. Terrified, I shattered the porcelain bowl in my hands. As I screamed, the man who rushed over clamped his hand over my mouth. Song Lianyue gently gathered the gauze robe slipping off her shoulder and gave the man a meaningful glance. The man shoved a pill into my mouth. Before consciousness faded, I recognized the man as Qing Kong, the stable hand of the mansion. When I awoke again, I found myself locked in the woodshed. Outside, maids' shrieks echoed. Qing Kong seized the commotion to pretend he'd just run into the courtyard from outside. He exclaimed he'd seen a man scaling the wall to escape. Song Lianyue, accompanied by her stepmother, kicked open the door, catching me disheveled and half-dressed. Rumors spread throughout the estate that I had committed adultery. My own mother had been caught in a similar act and drowned in a pig cage. As her biological daughter, I naturally inherited her character. Song Lianyue looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Linger, you've been by my side since you were 5. I never imagined you would do something so shameful to our family. I disown you as my sister." No matter how I protested, no one believed my words. Song Lianyue would forever remain the pure, spotless legitimate daughter of the Song family. To preserve the Song family's reputation, my father gave me a length of white silk, urging me to take my own life. Xiao Hong stole a key from the steward and secretly released me. I crawled through the dog hole in the backyard and fled. After escaping the estate, Penniless. I was deceived by a peddler with 2 steamed buns and sold into servitude as a lowly maid. Later, I made my way to the capital, infiltrated the imperial selection, and schemed my way to the position of imperial consort. By the time I sought revenge, the Song household had long since fallen into ruin. Having weathered the storms of palace intrigue and political upheaval in my past life, revenge now felt like a mere formality. Upon returning to the estate, I quietly assumed the role of the Song family's second daughter. I never stepped beyond the inner courtyard gates, devoting myself entirely to protecting Song Lianyue. When she sought illicit pleasures, I guarded the door. When she committed adultery, I delivered the letters. When she eloped, I carried the ladder. Late one night, Song Lianyue straddled the high wall, tears welling in her eyes as she gazed at me with overwhelming gratitude. Linger, I will never forget you. Leaning against the ladder, I looked up at her and smiled. Sister, of course you can't forget me. After all, I've remembered you for 2 lifetimes. She didn't grasp my meaning, tilting her head slightly to look at me. The night was as dark as ink. Dots of light appeared in the distance. As the light drew nearer, I realized it was officials from the magistrate's office running towards us. Torches raised. I had sent someone to report it. The Song residents had lost numerous silver notes, jewelry, and deeds to fields and estates. Part of these stolen valuables was found on the horse servant Qin Kong, while the rest was discovered in Song Lianyue's personal bundle. My father and stepmother arrived at the magistrate's office swiftly. Lu Zhizhou, Song Lianyue's maternal uncle, knew my father valued his reputation above all. Thus, the case was heard only late at night, with no word leaked to the outside world. Upon seeing her parents, Song Lianyue remained silent. My stepmother questioned her repeatedly but drew nothing from her. The stepmother turned to me. Linger, you and Lianyue were closest in daily life. Tell us what really happened. I glanced at Qin Kong, pinned to the ground by the constables. But before I could speak, Song Lianyue interjected. It was Song Chuling. When my daughter saw her planning to elope with the stable hand Qin Kong, she tried to dissuade her. I couldn't help but laugh aloud. Indeed, when my sister was trying to persuade me, she was still dressed in a maid's clothes. My father wasn't foolish. On the way here, he'd already pieced together the general outline of the situation. Song Lianyue's attempt to shift blame onto me backfired. She just confessed to this disgraceful elopement herself. Enraged, father raised his hand and slapped Song Lianyue across the face. You committed this shameful act yourself, yet dared to frame your own sister. I pinched my thigh hard, forcing out 2 tears. Sister, they found letters you wrote to Qin Kong on him. Father won't be fooled by this. My father took the letters handed to him by a servant, read a few lines, and couldn't resist slapping Song Lianyue across the face again. This is your handwriting. How dare you deny it? Song Lianyue stared at the explicit words she herself had written, overcome with shame and fury. Master, please stop hitting her. The legitimate mother embraced Song Lianyue, weeping heartrendingly. Lianyue has always been so obedient. She must have been deceived into committing this terrible act. I quickly chimed in, yes. The legitimate sister must have been tricked by Qin Kong. Qin Kong should be drowned in a pig cage first. No. Don't. Hearing this, Song Lianyue roared with bloodshot eyes, I bear his child. If he dies, neither will our daughter live. Her stepmother stared at her belly in disbelief. My father nearly choked on his anger. The scene was truly spectacular. I wished I had a bowl of melon seeds to munch on. In my past life, Song Lianyue only dared to elope after the palace announced the imperial selection of consorts. To save face, my father falsely claimed Song Lianyue had died of illness. To silence gossip, they killed a maid, disfigured her face, and staged a funeral for Song Lianyue. That maid they killed was my little Hong. This time, I administered a potion that made Song Lianyue believe she was pregnant, forcing her to elope with Qing Kong now. She threatened suicide to protect Qing Kong and the child within her. My mother-in-law held her and wept bitterly all night. By dawn, news of the Song family's legitimate daughter eloping with a stable hand spread through every street and alley. When I visited Song Lianyue in her room, dried blood still stained her forehead, likely from banging her head against the wall in her agony last night. My father was so enraged he took to his bed, surviving only on ginseng broth. Song Lianyue looked at me with bloodshot eyes. Her voice hoarse, Linger. In this predicament, you're the only one who can save me. I curled my lips into a cold smile. In this predicament, it would be kind of me not to stab my sister a few more times. She continued, I don't know if you've heard, but that incident of mine has already spread. Though I was the one who spread it. I shook my head. How could that be? I am the legitimate daughter of the Song household. Its very face. Yet now I've brought such disaster upon us. And father is so enraged he's fallen ill. The only solution now is for you to take the blame for your sister. Marry Qing Kong. And preserve the Song family's honor and my child. My stepmother quickly added, rest assured. If you accept this responsibility, we won't treat you unfairly. Your dowry will be arranged according to the standards of a legitimate daughter. As a mere concubine's daughter, receiving such pomp for your marriage is already a stroke of good fortune. Even now, they still insist I take the blame for Song Lianyue. I felt no anger, only a smile as I replied, very well. Sister. News of my marriage to Qing Kong spread quickly, and the rumors surrounding Song Lianyue vanished without a trace. My mother planned to send Song Lianyue to a nunnery outside the city to bear children, telling others she was merely praying for father's well-being. The Song family's honor was preserved, and father finally managed to swallow a few mouthfuls of porridge. Before her departure, Song Lianyue wished to see Qing Kong one last time and asked me to deliver her message. Her grip on my hand tightened as she looked at me with a face of magnanimous calm. Linger. Rest assured. This time, I only wish to sever all ties with him face to face. From now on, he will be yours alone. I sneered inwardly. You two already have children together. And now you want to sever all ties? I took the letter, copied her handwriting onto a new one, and delivered it to Qing Kong. That night, Song Lianyue waited outside the city gates until dawn. But Qing Kong never came. For Qing Kong had slipped away under cover of darkness, bypassing the guards to reach the bedchamber in the side courtyard. Soon after, a woman's shrill scream echoed from within. The guards swiftly surrounded the room. One agile guard kicked the door open, catching sight of Qing Kong and his disheveled stepmother. After father fell ill, my stepmother tended to him day and night, occasionally resting briefly in the side courtyard. I rushed forward, hastily draping an outer robe over my stepmother, who was still dazed. Leaning close, I whispered softly into her ear. Does this scene feel strangely familiar? You once used the same despicable trick to frame my own mother. During my time in the palace in my past life, I came to understand many things I couldn't grasp as a child. Mother initially refused to confess. Only after my stepmother took me to see her in the dungeon did she suddenly admit guilt. It wasn't until I grew up that I realized why. My life was in my stepmother's hands. My mother traded her life for mine. Now that Song Lianyue's life, indeed, the entire Song family, lies in my hands. My stepmother has no choice but to confess to this crime. After this incident, my father suffered a stroke from rage and now lies partially paralyzed in bed. He took only one concubine, my mother, when my stepmother was pregnant. He had only 2 daughters, Song Lianyue and me. Thus, the Song family fell into my hands with surprising ease. I brought my mother back to our hometown and rebuilt her grave. My stepmother once said she would kneel before my mother's tomb to confess her sins, begging me to spare her and Song Lianyue. But I never believed in such talk of repentance. Only by experiencing the same plight and agony as my mother could she truly atone. Through the changing seasons, days dragged on in endless tedium, until news arrived from the capital. The imperial palace would select a maiden from the Song household to become a court lady. Song Lianyue was fetched back from the nunnery by the Song family elders. Over 2 years of hardship had left her weathered, even thick layers of makeup couldn't conceal the rough marks etched upon her face. The moment she stepped down from the sedan chair, she fixed me with a vicious glare. Song Chuling, she spat. I know everything you've done. I won't let you off the hook. Faking your pregnancy, driving father to illness, maddening our mother, murdering Ching Kong. I gently adjusted my hairpin and met her gaze. Sister, with all the deeds you've committed, which one might you be referring to? Song Lianyue trembled with fury, wringing her embroidered handkerchief so tightly her fingertips nearly bled. Guards! Drag this venomous woman away and beat her to death. Her words fell, yet not a servant stirred. I smiled. Sister, take a good look. Is there anyone here from the old Song household? The Song in Song Manor has long belonged to Song Chuling. She roared from behind me, Song Chuling. Just you wait. I will enter the palace as an imperial consort. I will have my revenge. I didn't even bother to turn my head. You'd better wash up and go to bed early. That night, Xiao Hong helped me wash and comb my hair, her eyes brimming with worry. Miss, I asked around near the nunnery at the laundry women's quarters. Song Lianyue saved a fallen courtesan 2 months ago. They say that courtesan not only taught her how to pass the palace physical examination but also shared many ways to seduce men. If she truly gains favor in the future, then miss, don't worry. She's going to the capital to meet her end. Your young mistress is alive and well. I patted her hand. You'd do better to focus on your marriage to your cousin. I've already prepared your dowry. The young maid blushed at the teasing remark. Once you're married, I can go to the capital without worry. What will you do in the capital, young mistress? I've grown tired of this place. I'm off to the capital to play at being empress. Xiao Hong stared at me wide-eyed for a long moment, saying nothing. What? You don't believe your young mistress could become empress? No. It's not that. After all these years by your side, I know you can accomplish anything. I just never imagined you'd aspire to be empress. In my past life, I was but a step away from the empress's throne. But I don't necessarily need to be empress. But if I don't enter the city now, my future husband might not survive. Shortly after Xiao Hong's wedding, Song Lianyue and I set off for the capital. I rode in a comfortable carriage, while Song Lianyue had to squeeze into the rear carriage with the servants. During a roadside rest stop, she lifted the curtain and glared at me fiercely. Song Chuling, one day, I will kill you. I took a bite of the roasted chicken leg. You'd be better off worrying whether I'll poison you and then impersonate you to enter the palace. Hearing this, Song Lianyue was so terrified she dared not even take a sip of water. Starving, she climbed trees in the dead of night to pick wild fruit. Her foolishness was truly beyond belief. Even if she managed to enter the palace, she'd only end up being toyed with until she perished. All under heaven knew the old emperor favored slender beauties. To maintain her figure, Song Lianyue subsisted daily on liquid meals alone, her waist so narrow it could barely be grasped. Rumor had it she'd learned many courtesan tricks from a fallen flower queen, so she was convinced she'd win favor far more easily than those stiff, aristocratic ladies. Yet few realized the old emperor was gravely ill, with only days left to live. Once the old emperor passed, all these newly selected beauties would be buried alive with him. In my past life, the young lady from the family that bought me heard this and fled in the night. Left with no choice, the master had me take her place and enter the palace. I was fortunate, the old emperor died before I arrived. I ultimately became a consort to the new emperor. The future emperor was the young crown prince Reuniting, just 5 years old at the time. To win his favor, I learned straw weaving and sugar figurine making during my journey to the capital, and bought several storybooks. In my past life, I was the only one among all the consorts who could lull Reuniting to sleep. I dared not imagine how favored I would be this time around, having mastered so many new skills. I took a bite of the candied hawthorn, its sweet and sour taste delighting my palate. This time, becoming the most favored concubine in the harem was practically guaranteed. The day of my entry into the palace arrived in the blink of an eye. Song Lianyue swayed her hips as she stepped through the palace gates, only to be immediately escorted by the matron in charge to the cold palace. Before she could react, she cried out in panic, "I won't go to the cold palace. That place isn't fit for humans. I refuse to be a concubine. Let me go. Let me go." Even those who had spent their entire lives in the harem had never witnessed a court lady being sent to the cold palace the moment she crossed the threshold. Only I knew that Song Lianyue's fate today stemmed from the slap I had delivered to Reuniting back then. Because of my frame-up, Song Lianyue was destined for a tragic end. But I never imagined Reuniting would act so swiftly. This man truly holds grudges. This lifetime, I must keep my distance from him. Before entering the palace, I visited the Jiang residence. Just as in my past life, I entered the palace under the identity of Jiang Wanning, the legitimate daughter of Magistrate Jiang. After 2 months of learning court etiquette, my turn to attend the emperor finally arrived. Kneeling properly in the center of the bedchamber, I lowered my gaze and said, "Your Majesty, this humble servant can weave grasshoppers from rushes. Would you like to see?" From behind the yellow curtains came a man's cold snort. "Who knew you had so many tricks up your sleeve?" A chill crept up my spine and spread through my body. I couldn't help but shiver. Lifting my eyes, I saw Reuniting stepping out from behind the curtains toward me. Reuniting met my stunned gaze. "What? Don't recognize me?" He wore a bright yellow, gold-embroidered robe, radiating an innate imperial presence. "If you don't recognize me, then why did you slap the emperor that day?" He savored the sight of my crumbling resolve, murmuring my name through thin lips, Song Chuling. Suddenly, I realized he had reincarnated too. After his rebirth, Reuniting ascended the throne as the new emperor. Half the candles in the bedchamber were extinguished, casting flickering shadows in his dark eyes. He pinched my chin, studying my expression with amusement. My voice trembled as I asked, "Did you deliberately hide your ascension from me? How else could I wait for you to come to me willingly? My beloved, your Majesty, where is Reuniting? You shielded him in my past life, and you're shielding him in this one?" A shadow of malevolence darkened his brow. "What? Do you wish to join him in death?" I clutched his sleeve. "I was wrong to use you in my past life. He's just a child, don't take his life." A cold smile touched Reuniting's lips. "You reincarnated knowing you'd seek revenge. What makes you think I won't exact mine? I've only been reborn for 3 years. Yet death comes so swiftly." Tears spilled from my eyes, landing on Reuniting's hand. "Don't cry." His brows furrowed in impatience as he barked. "I haven't even acted yet." Facing certain death, I no longer feared him. All my pent-up grievances poured out. Time and again, when I nearly died, he stood before me, shielding me. So many sought his throne and his life. What was wrong with me protecting him? If I'd wanted to harm you, I would have done it long ago. Instead, I even paid your travel expenses. And you slapped me. Reuniting's eyes darkened. Then he suddenly smiled. "You won't admit it, will you? You even invoked your elder sister's name." That slap was something he'd never forget for the rest of his life. Thinking back, I really had been incredibly bold. I didn't know how to defend myself, so I just rolled my eyes and fainted. Darkness enveloped me, and I heard Xia Yunhan's cold laughter. What a terrible performance. I was sent back to my quarters, daring not open my eyes. I drifted into a deep, dazed sleep. In my dreams, scenes from my past life surfaced. Xia Yunchen, a small figure clad in dragon robes, sat stiffly upon the throne in the grand hall. He understood not a single word spoken by the ministers, yet dared not move an inch. During the meal after court, I ladled him a bowl of milk porridge and coaxed softly, "Your Majesty, you must eat well to grow tall and strong." Xia Yunchen lifted his eyes to me and asked, "Sister, can I still grow up?" Even as a child, he sensed the treacherous currents swirling around him. Xia Yunchen's uncle was the renowned General Shen, celebrated for his military achievements. Chancellor Liu, seeking to elevate his own son-in-law Xia Yunpi to power, colluded with foreign enemies. This betrayal led to the deaths of General Shen and his two sons beyond the frontier, causing the Shen clan to fall into ruin. Xia Yunchen was left without a single relative in this world, stripped of any backing. Now he was merely a puppet who could be killed at any moment. After seizing power, Xia Yunbi ran rampant in the palace, his henchmen and he himself brutalizing and murdering countless palace maids and consorts. Everyone knew he was a beast. Whenever Xia Yunbi approached, Xia Yunchen would shield me, not letting him come within an inch of me. He stood motionless, narrowing his eyes as his gaze lingered on me. Sticky and sickening. The imperial consort truly lived up to her reputation, a beauty that could topple a city. I knew Xia Yunbi would come for me sooner or later, but I never imagined he'd be so brazen as to attack me in broad daylight. He slaughtered the palace maid guarding the door, stormed into my chambers, and pinned me down on the dressing table. Hairpins and ornaments scattered across the floor. I thought my end had come. This time, Xia Yunchen couldn't protect me. Then I would try to protect him instead. I plucked a hairpin from my hair and thrust it viciously into him before he could react. Xia Yunbi screamed and released me. Blood drenched half his face. Clutching his eyes, he writhed on the floor, wailing in agony. Before his men could rush in, I fled through the window. At that time, Xia Yunhan was the only prince who hadn't bowed to Xia Yunbi. Kneeling before Xia Yunhan, I trembled as I told him I'd do anything to survive. That night, I stayed in his chambers. His entourage found it peculiar. Xia Yunhan was famously indifferent to women. Court officials who tried to curry favor by sending beauties to his residence often had them sent back. Yet he kept me by his side. I suppose it was because those beauties wouldn't poison him. Xia Yunbi nearly died from my stab wound. During the half-year he lay bedridden, Xia Yunhan executed many, built his own power base, and rose to become the regent prince who dominated the court and the realm. Everyone cursed me as a demonic concubine who brought ruin to the nation, colluding with the regent prince to seize control of the government. Yet Xia Yunhan knew deep down that no matter how obedient I appeared before him, my true allegiance lay elsewhere. His closest ministers urged him to eliminate me, for sooner or later, I would become his greatest threat. That day, his fingers tightened around my throat, the pressure between his knuckles steadily intensifying. Staring into his dark, shadowed eyes, I told him I was with child. He summoned the imperial physician to take my pulse, and the doctor confirmed the signs of pregnancy. After that night, he never came to see me again. Soon after, chaos erupted across the land. Xia Yunbi led his troops into the palace, storming all the way to the main hall. Fierce flames engulfed the palace, staining the night sky crimson. Eunuchs and palace maids fled in all directions. The clatter of hooves, the clang of swords and arrows, and the wails of the wounded echoed ceaselessly. Dressed in Xia Yunchen's robes, I was brought before Xia Yunbi. The eye I had blinded was covered by a black patch. Through the other, He glared at me with a look that could kill. Where have you hidden the young emperor? Silent? Fine. I have all the time in the world to torture you. You forbade me from touching you? Then I shall bestow you upon my soldiers. Xiaoyunbi commanded his men. Do as you please with the imperial consort. Just don't kill her, keep her alive. I want this wretch to suffer a fate worse than death. I braced myself on the ground, gasping for breath as I laughed. You dog of a traitor! You should thank me for sparing one eye, allowing you to sit in high office and watch the spectacle today. All these years, I've regretted night and day that I didn't strike harder that day, that I didn't drive that hairpin deeper to take your worthless life. For years, no one dared mention the eye he'd lost in Xiaoyunbi's presence. He was utterly enraged, his expression bordering on madness. Guards! Poke out this bitch's eyes. Chop off her limbs. Turn her into a human pig. I continued mocking him. Even if you grind my bones to dust, you'll still only have one eye. If you ascend the throne, our great Yin dynasty will have its first one-eyed emperor. Xiaoyunbi snatched a blade and lunged at me. As the blade descended, an arrow whistled past my hair, piercing his single, bloodshot eye. I slowly turned to see Xiaoyunhan charging toward us on horseback, clad in armor and wielding a bow. He grabbed the back of my collar and hoisted me onto his horse. Perched on the galloping horse, I didn't scream in terror for the first time. He had clearly ambushed Xiaoyunbi at the city gates. Why risk entering the palace? I couldn't fathom it, nor did I have time to ponder further. My body felt limp and weak, clinging desperately to him. I lifted my head and declared, Xiaoyunhan, I'm not pregnant. I took the medicine myself to survive. He glanced down at me with a cold sneer. What? Failed to die earlier? Now you want to die by my hand? Inside the palace, corpses piled like mountains. Blood pooled everywhere. Arrows rained down like hail. A piercing whistle whistled past my ear. I threw myself forward onto his chest as an arrow pierced my back. Blood gushed relentlessly from my mouth and nose, through the crimson haze clouding my vision. I stared at Xiaoyunhan, his face frozen in disbelief. Even I couldn't believe I'd taken that arrow for him. I'd already swallowed poison. It wouldn't be long before it took effect. I wasn't afraid of death. I feared only that I might break under torture and reveal His Majesty's whereabouts. Xiaoyunhan, why the hell did I block that arrow for you? You bastard? It hurts like hell. After waking from the dream, I was filled with regret. I'd acted my whole life in front of Xiaoyunhan. Yet at the moment of death, I suddenly didn't want to play the part anymore. Had I known he'd been reborn too, when I blocked that arrow for him in my past life, I should have feigned deep affection. Now it's too late to put on that act. Xiaoyunhan had only recently ascended the throne. With the realm still unsettled, he was consumed by daily affairs. I assumed he'd forget me for a time. Yet by evening he summoned me to dine with him. He wore a purple robe, just as he had in my past life. Purple still suits you best. What? Do you think I'm unworthy of the dragon robe? I rarely compliment you, must you be so sensitive? I'd been locked up all day without a drop of water. I sat straight down at the table and ladled myself a bowl of bird's nest soup. The eunuch beside me hurriedly reminded me of the rules. But Xiaoyunhan dismissed him. After 2 sips of the soup, I began serving myself dishes without a second thought. Not satisfied with my own bowl, I reached for the food on his chopsticks. I swallowed the mouthful of food slowly, then raised my eyes to glare at him. If I'm going to die anyway, I'll die stuffed. Xiaoyunhan's lips twitched. You look pretty full already. Not enough. I ate 2 more bowls of rice. Xiaoyunhan didn't take a single bite, just propped his chin up and watched me. For a moment, I suspected he'd poisoned the food. But then I realized I wasn't that lucky. A psychopath like Xiaoyunhan wouldn't kill me so easily. I thought you'd ask about Xia Yunshan's whereabouts. What's the point? You wouldn't kill him anyway. And now that I'm in your hands, knowing his location wouldn't change anything. How can you be so sure I wouldn't kill him? You must have made the late emperor change his will on his deathbed. Killing the former crown prince right after ascending the throne and offending General Shin, wouldn't that make you mad? I poured myself a cup of wine and took a sip. Besides, throughout history, how many emperors haven't met an untimely end? If he doesn't become emperor, growing up safely is just as good. Xia Yunhan's eyes darkened. I caught myself and offered him a smile. Your Majesty, of course your life won't be cut short. You'll surely enjoy blessings as vast as the eastern sea and longevity as enduring as the southern mountains. Living as long as heaven and earth. Song Chuling, he said coldly. I am human, not a turtle. How I wish Xia Yunhan were that turtle in the wishing pond. If I tossed a coin, he'd spare my wretched life. Xia Yunhan said, you must please me to stay alive. For a full month, he summoned me night after night. I grew gaunt and haggard, while he grew more vibrant each day. I understood, he intended to torture me slowly, turning me into the entire harem's bane. Soon, the entire harem would scheme against me. One day, I'd die without a proper burial. Xia Yunhan reviewed memorials at his desk while I ground ink until my hands ached. Your Majesty, the harem must not meddle in state affairs. Shall I have a eunuch grind ink for you? He gave a cold laugh. Unless I kill you, what secrets would remain in this world? A tyrant, always threatening death. Still, Xia Yunhan truly lived up to his reincarnated status. He had already neutralized most of the seeds of rebellion from his previous life. Over these past 2 years, he had gradually dismantled the power base under Lu Shou's control. He had also schemed to prevent Lu Shou's daughter from marrying Xia Yunbi. Without Lu Xiang's backing, Xia Yunbi was now nothing but a toothless tiger. After finishing the memorials, Xia Yunhan still found time to pin me down on the bed for a full hour. His cool lips traced from my cheek to my neck, his sharp teeth biting lightly then hard into the tender flesh at my throat. Hadn't the palace maid arrived with the midnight meal, I'd have thought he'd bite me to death. I hastily gathered my robes and stood. Just as I reached for the food box the palace maid held, she abruptly set it down and knelt with a thud. Your Majesty, the consort Wan by your side is not Jiang Wanning, daughter of Magistrate Jiang. She is my younger half-sister. Song Chuling. Song Chuling entered the palace under false pretenses. This is a capital offense. I watched Song Lianyue's face twisted with grief and anger, my brow furrowing slightly. Whoever orchestrated this plot to release her from the cold palace and send her to accuse me before Xia Yunhan. Xia Yunhan took a calm sip of tea, seemingly unsurprised by Song Lianyue's sudden appearance. Then her crime is indeed punishable by death. She should be executed by Ling Qi. I picked up the food box, pulled out a piece of osmanthus cake, and took a bite. Song Lianyue stared at me in astonishment. How dare you eat His Majesty's food? I picked up a chestnut cake, took a bite, and smiled at her. Isn't someone like me, who's committed a capital offense, perfect for testing poison? Xia Yunhan, eyes lowered as he studied the memorial in his hand, remarked, eat less tonight. You've gained a bit of weight lately. I ignored him, stuffing another almond milk cake into my mouth. Today's pastries seem tastier than usual. Xia Yunhan replied, a new imperial pastry chef has recently joined the royal kitchen. If you enjoy them, I'll have him prepare more tomorrow. Song Lianyue listened to our conversation, looking utterly dumbfounded. After a moment of blankness, she slammed her forehead against the floor, trembling violently as she cried out, Your Majesty! Song Chuling is a venomous woman. She drove my mother-in-law mad, caused my own father's death, and even slandered my chastity. I beg you to vindicate me. Xia Yunhan raised an eyebrow at me. Song Chuling, I never imagined you could be so vicious. Even death by slow slicing would be too lenient. I shall have your entire clan executed. Song Lianyue glared at me with venom, her expression shifting from smugness to utter panic. Your Majesty. You said. Exterminate 9 clans? Xia Yunhan shot her a cold glance. Did you just claim to be her legitimate elder sister? Song Lianyue's face instantly turned as pale as paper. Her entire body shook violently until she could no longer hold herself up, collapsing backward and fainting. So this is what it truly means to be scared unconscious. I never imagined Xia Yunhan would let me see Xia Yunchen again. Just like in my previous life. After the Empress's death, he cried through night after night of nightmares. By day, he refused food and drink, and no one could comfort him. I sat silently by his bedside, instead weaving a butterfly from fresh grass. When it was finished, I held it out before him. He reached for it, but I pointed to the soup beside me. Take a sip of this, and I'll give it to you. True to my word. He stopped crying and drank the soup. The attendant matron finally breathed a sigh of relief. I handed him the butterfly and added, take 2 more sips, and I'll weave you anything you desire. Xia Yunchen thought for a moment. I want a big tiger. That's far too difficult. You must drink at least 5 sips. Xia Yunchen managed only 3 sips. Afterward, I did my best to weave him a creature that looked like a cross between a tiger and a rabbit. He smiled, a rare smile, and chatted with me for a while. I stroked his head. Your Highness. Like you, I lost my mother at 5. At first, I cried night after night, thinking of her constantly. But then I realized, Mother wouldn't want to see me like this. She'd want to see me eating well, sleeping soundly, living life to the fullest. Xia Yunchen nodded wisely. Sister, I understand. Mother would want to see me doing well too. I told him a few more stories until he finally fell asleep. The nurse said he hadn't cried or fussed in his sleep, a rare occurrence. By the time I returned to my quarters, it was very late. The room was dark. As I pushed open the door, a figure sat at the table, catching my eye. Startled, I suppressed the urge to scream upon recognizing the face. I lit the lamps, flooding the room with light. Your Majesty, are you reminiscing about your past life as a ghost? He lifted his eyelids, his gaze cold. I thought you'd be missing your former husband and spending the night with Xia Yunchen. If I were 2 years older, I could have borne Xia Yunchen a child of that age. How could I regard him as my husband? I found it amusing. Your Majesty, could it be? You're jealous? The air hung heavy for a moment. Xia Yunhan stared at me intently before suddenly speaking. In my past life, you were so devoted to him. You would stop at nothing to use me for his sake. You even risked your own life to save him. Memories of my past life flooded my mind, and I closed my eyes. He always called me sister in private. My mother was pregnant when she died. Had she not been framed by the legitimate mother, I might have had a younger brother or sister. Perhaps I truly treated him like a real younger brother. Everything I did in my past life was just so he could grow up. If he could grow up, maybe he wouldn't have to be a puppet. I wronged you in my past life. You may do with me as you please. Xia Yunhan suddenly seized my wrist, his grip gradually loosening. He gazed at me across the flickering candlelight. That arrow you took for me, I've remembered it for 2 lifetimes. I glanced at the bamboo basket on the table and sighed. Had I known your Majesty wouldn't kill me, I wouldn't have folded so many gold ingots for myself. Xia Yunhan scoffed coldly. That was for your mother. Her memorial day is approaching. You were folding them for her. I frowned. How does your Majesty know everything? He drew me close, sweeping me onto the bed with him. I've been deceived too many times. So I investigated every detail of your past. Resting my arms on his chest, I asked, does your Majesty pity me? He stroked my hair and sighed, pity. yet also hateful. With Xie Yunhan as emperor this lifetime, the realm enjoyed far greater stability. Unlike my previous life, where survival demanded constant scheming, my days now passed in leisure. I made several strings of candied hawthorn berries to send to Xie Yunchen. The tartness made him squint, his face lighting up with childlike innocence. My royal brother has already granted me the title of Prince Chen. Next month, I'll move out of the palace to establish my own estate. The matron says I'll begin my education then, studying day and night. He licked the sugar residue from his lips. Sister-in-law, will you come see me? I froze. What did you call me? Xie Yunchen's voice was childish yet earnest. My brother said I can't call you sister anymore. I asked him what I should call you, and he said I should call you imperial sister-in-law. On the way back to the palace, my thoughts were restless, my head heavy and muddled like a tangled ball of yarn. I dismissed the palace maids accompanying me and sat by the lake for a long time. When I turned around, I collided with a pair of sinister eyes. So you're the woman fourth brother cherishes most? Xie Yunbi stared at me, his grin twisted and vicious. Tell me, if I took you, do you think fourth would go mad? I twisted my lips. What? Can't beat him in court. So you take it out on women? Just like in my past life. He flashed anger at my words. Xie Yunbi's face contorted as he lunged to grab my throat. I tore open the perfume pouch at my waist and flung its powder into his face. In his moment of shock, I yanked the golden hairpin from my hair and plunged it deep into his neck. Blood spurted instantly, trickling down my palm along the veins. Hui Chun, Sanger, Li Chun, Xiu Lan, Qin Shu, Huai Rou, Xu Chui, Wei Yu. His eyes widened as he glared at me, his mouth agape, unable to utter a single word. He didn't ask, but I whispered to him, in my past life, they were all women in the harem you defiled and murdered. There were many more, so many I don't even know their names. My deepest regret is that in my past life, that hairpin only took his eyes, not his life. This time, I watched him draw his last breath in my hands. This life, at last, has not been lived in vain. I was brought before the grand hall and knelt before Xie Yunhan. Beside him, his trusted elder minister, Grand Elder Ji, murmured incessantly, Your Majesty, Consort Wan's assassination of the Crown Prince is a crime punishable by the execution of her entire clan. Xie Yunhan seemed oblivious to my blood-stained robes. Frowning as he said, Consort Wan has always been gentle. I cannot believe she would commit such an act. Old Minister Ji's frail frame thudded to the ground as he knelt. No virtuous woman in this world would kill with such cruelty. Your Majesty, for your own safety, you must not keep such a vicious woman by your side. Xie Yunhan feigned distress. Furrowing his brow, she is with child. It seems we cannot kill her. At these words, I froze in shock. When did I become pregnant? How could I not know? Only when Xie Yunhan shot me a fierce glare did I realize he was signaling me to play along. I immediately clutched my chest, feigning nausea. I understood Xie Yunhan's silent signal. He wanted me to improvise, he'd run out of ideas. After a moment's thought, I whispered softly, Your servant has studied some first aid techniques. When passing by the lake, I saw Prince Bai injured and lying on the ground. Without hesitation, I rushed forward to press his wound and stop the bleeding. That powder on Prince Bai's face contained a white medicinal powder. I thought it might help stop the bleeding. My expression was gentle and submissive, and Grand Secretary Ji was completely taken in by my words. Xie Yunhan approached and helped me up from the ground. Consort Wan is truly kind-hearted. Minister Ji, what do you say to me making her empress? At these words, both Minister Ji and I were utterly dumbfounded. Just then, a palace guard rushed in to report. Your Majesty, the weapon used to assassinate Prince Bai has been found. It is the golden hairpin from Consort Wan's head. Your servant has ascertained that Consort 1 did not notice the hairpin falling. The assassin retrieved it to kill Prince Bai, then framed Consort 1 for the crime. Clutching my chest, I exclaimed in shock. What a vile and treacherous scheme. Have you captured the assassin? Yes, Your Majesty. The assassin infiltrated the imperial selection process a year ago as a candidate. Her name is Song Lianyue. Hearing the name Song Lianyue, I nearly burst out laughing. I had indeed planned to frame her for a crime someday, but never imagined such a monumental one. I heard that before her final breath. Song Lianyue confessed she was sent by Chancellor Liu. Xia Yunhan used this incident to force Chancellor Liu into retirement. This lifetime wasn't like the previous one, filled with chaos and strife. The realm was peaceful, and the people lived in contentment. From this perspective, Xia Yunhan truly had the makings of an emperor. That night, Xia Yunhan's fingertips brushed aside the sweat-dampened strands of hair across my forehead. My eyelashes fluttered as I asked him after I died, "Did you become emperor in your past life?" I never knew who ultimately ascended the throne. Xia Yunhan replied, "Chancellor Liu colluded with foreign invaders, launching massive incursions against the Great Yan's lands. I perished on the battlefield, recalling the shattered realm of my past life. A wave of sadness washed over me. That Liu Xian could retire to his hometown in this life, he got off far too easily." Xia Yunhan's cool, jade-like fingers twirled a lock of my black hair as he said softly, "I've already arranged for men to await him on his journey home. I thought you'd stopped killing so much in this life. To be an emperor requires wisdom. So publicly, I rarely kill anymore." He gazed at me in the moonlight and smiled, "Ah, and an emperor must never lie. Therefore, you must bear me an heir." A flush spread across his temples as he drew me into his embrace. Before I could react, he pulled me back into that dark, passionate whirlpool. That night, I slept deeply. I dreamed of the first time I ever saw Xia Yunhan in this lifetime. He was still a powerless prince, forced to blend among disaster refugees to evade assassins. He sat on the ground in ragged clothes while I, dressed in a light blue ruchuan, looked down at him. Xiao Hong tugged at my sleeve, "Don't go over there, miss. His eyes are all red, it's kind of scary." In my past life, Xia Yunhan always held high status. I had to go to great lengths to please him just to keep him from taking my life. I never imagined I'd see him so lowly before me. A sly smile touched my lips as I handed him the white flour cake. He took a bite, still gazing at me with bloodshot eyes. I raised my hand and slapped him. "Did you say thank you?" He lowered his gaze slightly and murmured, "Thank you." As he turned to leave, I glanced back at him and thought I saw a glistening wetness at the corner of his eye. At the time, I thought my slap had made him cry, and a surge of satisfaction filled my heart. Now I realize, Xia Yunhan went to war at 14. He never shed a tear, no matter how severe his wounds. How could my slap have made him cry? I slowly opened my eyes and murmured his name. Xia Yunhan. Xia Yunhan, whether asleep or awake, tightened his grip around my waist. "The first time you ever saw me in this life, did you cry?" Faint candlelight illuminated his deep, refined features. Resting my head on his chest, I stared at him for a long moment. Xia Yunhan pulled me closer, kissed the top of my head, and murmured softly. He opened his sleepy eyes, met my dazed gaze, and suddenly smiled. "A Ling, in our past life, you provoked me. This lifetime, you've fallen into my hands. You must accept your fate." I never imagined I'd be entangled with Xia Yunhan across 2 lifetimes. This morning, Xia Yunhan had already issued an edict proclaiming me empress. With no maternal clan or backing, he had me adopt General Shen as my adoptive father. I needn't scheme, he calculates everything for me. Apart from my mother, no one in this world has ever plotted for my benefit. Falling into his hands again this lifetime feels like no loss at all. I never imagined two cold-hearted souls like Xie Yunhan and myself would end up together in this life. My eyes reddened as I gazed at him. Had I known, I would have shielded you from more arrows. No, he replied. You must die after me. This lifetime cannot be one where I alone survive. Across the silent night, his dark eyes held a chill that slowly melted. He reached out to tuck the quilt around me, sighing helplessly, sleep now, Empress. Tomorrow we must perform the coronation rites. I leaned against his chest and slowly closed my eyes. The winter night was still, carrying only the crackle of charcoal in the brazier and the crunch of snow-laden branches snapping outside. Stars twinkled in the night sky. Tomorrow would surely be a clear day. The end.